Hey everybody, Jeremy Siskind here, the author of this book, Playing Solo Jazz Piano. Buy it today, enjoy it for the rest of your life. Alright, so today I wanted to give a more in-depth answer to how do you play medium swing solo piano. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 8 different approaches you could take to playing. I'm going to do Autumn Leaves because that's a tune that lots of people know. And what you're going to see and what gets me excited is that even within these styles that I'm outlining, these 8 different styles, which I'm sure it's not everything that you could do, but it's a pretty good list. There's all of these kind of subsets of what you can do. So let's just dive in. If you don't know Autumn Leaves, that's kind of the main outline of the A section. Okay, so the most historically common thing that we can do with a medium swing tune is play it stride piano, right? Stride means that we're moving every quarter note between a bass note of some sort, or a lower expression of our chord, and a higher chord voicing. So. I'm not going to dwell on stride piano. There's 4 chapters in my book about stride piano. I love it. I think it's endlessly fascinating. There's a million different ways to play stride piano. But we got a long list here. So the second thing that you could do is play what I call a stride-like left hand. And basically what you're doing there is you're moving between this lower expression of the chord and the higher expression of the chord. But now you're not doing it every quarter note. So you can use kind of common comping patterns. I often suggest that people start with like the Charleston. I'm using little bass fills. I've talked about this on my channel before. And it certainly doesn't have to be predictable. If you're trying to comp in a bebop, hard bop style, you don't want it to be predictable. So you can really start mixing it up. Jabbing with those chords and with those bass notes in, like I said, a bebop or a hard bop style. Of course, famously, drummers like to drop bombs. And we don't necessarily need to drop bombs as pianists, but we do want to drop a lot of little jabs. And you can see my boxing form is obviously excellent, so thank you. Okay, third thing I call the right hand shuttle. And basically this means that the left hand is going to be playing a bass line. And within this bass line, it could be a bass line in 2, a bass line in 4. It could be kind of a broken feel bass line with a lot of variation. And the right hand is going to go in between, playing the melody and then comping. And Autumn Leaves is such a great tune for this because it has these big open spaces. When you do this, if you read the Autumn Leaves melody as written, you'd be holding it forever. Right? So you're going to have to make these notes short, which actually just goes really well with a swing style anyways. So the left hand's playing a bass line. I'm doing a bass line in 2. I could play a bass line in 4. Interesting open bass line. Now, that's my best Bill Evans trio imitation, right? Or Keith Jarrett trio or something like that, where the bass line is more melodic and less predictable. So you've got a lot of options. Now, moving on to number 4, you could keep any version of that left hand bass line. And I'm going to do something slightly different with the right hand, which is that I'm going to, what I call drape chords off of it. So for the shuttle, I'm playing the melody, moving into the mid-range for the voicing, playing the melody, moving into the mid-range for the voicing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the melody and the voicing at the same time. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, and your voicing's going to have to change with the melody note because you're not a magician. You can't just expand your hand. So what I'm going to do in order to accommodate this is I'm going to move the melody down to this lower register so that the chords are still kind of coming in our general chord range. So in the book because there's all kinds of like fun things. If you want to do something more modern, for example, you could put in major triads. You could have a lot of fun with it and do all kinds of things. You could play six. Kind of make it a melodic second voice. Anything that fills in a little bit of the harmony. Number 5, call and response. And autumn leaves again is great for this because you have these big open footballs in here. But we could go. Separating out the melody and the harmony. And I'm playing the melody, you can see, in octaves. Just to give it a little bit more weight. I could play it with a single line, but it sounds better in octaves. I don't hate this. And I'm really thinking like a big band, and I'm trying to make really melodic accompaniments as I get into the call and response. We could use shearing or drop 2 voicings. I have a whole video, I think it's called 6 levels of closed position voicings if you're interested. Again, I'd probably do these in a lower register in order to fill in the chord. Sounds good there. This does leave some open space, so you could add in some kind of call and response. It's kind of fun since those voicings are in the middle of the piano to go to the outside. You could, of course, add more chords. Or you could add more kind of melody in and fill in those phrases with more closed position or shearing voicings. So those are drop 2 voicings now. So either of those are nice because you're playing the melody and you're filling in a lot of the harmony. Now, I've made at least one video about shared hand voicing. This is where we use this a lot in ballad playing, where both hands are contributing to a big spread out voicing. And we can use this for swing in a lot of different ways. And I only counted it as one way, but you know, something that I'll do pretty frequently is I'll hold a bass and then kind of comp. So you can see that I'm comping with kind of rotation. Or you could really separate the separate out the bass and the chords, and you could play. Right, and that's a really nice approach too. Great, and lastly, you could think more contrapuntally. Instead of thinking top down, you could think linearly. So maybe it's right. It could even be the melodies in the left hand. Stuff, the counterpoint's so amazing, and you can form a lot of harmony through melodies. And there is on my channel a video about forming kind of a linear arrangement, and that gets into playing even more than two. You can play 3 or 4 voices, especially if you're playing a ballad. So I hope that helps. And you know, as you're thinking about playing multiple choruses, what I would do is I would move through these different techniques and not try to do the same one the whole time through. So you know, if you start with stride piano, let's. Then maybe for the solo, you want to go to a more of a right-hand shuttle approach. And then do some drape. It's often really hard to isolate exactly what they're doing because they integrate all of these approaches, and I'm sure more than this, very smoothly. But I think this is a helpful list for you to really master these 8 approaches, and you'll have a lot of options. And then not every medium swing tune will sound the same. I want you to be able to play medium swing tunes, each kind of with their own arrangement, each with their own personality and character. So those are 8 ways to approach medium swing tunes. Thanks for your attention and for your time. Liking and subscribing. Ordering my book from jeremysiskind.com is the best place to get it. And I'll be back with more videos this weekend. See you later.